This is Dick Zondag, Jung's Garden Doctor, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how to prepare your soils for your garden. It's important to have a nice soil for your plants to grow in, because your plants will not do any better than the soil that they're growing in. We'll talk a little bit about the different types of soil and what you can do. In Randolph here we have a nice deep silt loam soil, and so there's very little that we have to do to amend it, but I do keep adding organic matter by composting every spring, because that helps keep the soil more friable. It keeps the nutrients in the soil profile longer, and just makes the soil much nicer. If you have a clay soil, there are a few things that you can do to adjust the soil. The first thing that I would do is I would put a layer of maybe a 3 or 4 inch layer of some kind of compost, well-rotted manure, or peat moss is pretty expensive, but any kind of organic matter, and then put an inch or two of sand on top of that, and then work it into the top 6 inches of soil. Gives your soil a much easier way of having the water move through it, and will give your root crops a little easier job of growing in them. With a sandy soil, the problem is nutrient retention and the water moving through too fast. And so with sandy soil, you want to put a lot of organic matter into the sand, because that will help keep the nutrients in the soil profile and also help retain the water. With a sandy soil, you may want to also mulch after the soil warms up, because the mulch will also retain water for a longer period of time. A little about composting. The best time to make compost is in the fall, when you have leaves or grass clippings or things like that. And the way that you do that is, if you have leaves, you want to shred the leaves so that there's a lot of surface area for your microorganisms to work on. So you can do that by either purchasing a leaf shredder, or you can just run it through your lawnmower a couple times. The pieces of leaves should be about the size of a dime or a nickel in size, and that way the microorganisms that do the decomposition will have much more surface area to work on. So what you want to do is get yourself a compost bin, or you can make one out of chicken wire or whatever. You make a 6-inch layer of the components that you want to compost. On top of that, you put some fertilizer, because the microorganisms need that fertility to multiply and to decompose the organic matter. And then if the constituents are dry, then you want to put a little water in, because that will also keep the microorganisms more working faster. After the 6-inch layer is treated, then you want to put some soil on top of it, or to get a composting agent to put on top of that, so that you get the microorganisms that do the decomposition. Then you just put another 6-inch layer of organic matter, your moisture if you need to add water, and fertilizer, and then the soil or the inoculant. And by doing that in layers, you can get the composting going. And in about 3 or 4 weeks, you want to turn the compost so that you get things mixed up. And the way that you can tell if your compost is ready to use in the garden next spring is if you can't recognize the constituents that went into the compost pile. If the leaves are still very recognizable, leave the compost pile untouched, and incorporate it next spring. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. This is Dick Zondag, Jung's Garden Doctor, wishing you a great garden this summer.